This is the first day of this February 1985 7-day retreat. For the sake of people who have not been to a retreat with us before, during a talk, find a posture which is optimally comfortable, if that's possible, using, if necessary, a chair or a bench, or as many cushions as there are available. In the course of a retreat, one acquires a mastery in using cushions. And if the position becomes painful, or there's a cramp or tension in the back or knee, then change the posture. If possible, very quietly, so that one creates a minimum of disturbance to people who sit around one. Which is possible. We talked about making sounds last night. If attention is there, an interested awareness, one may find that very often noises that one produces have to do with wanting to feel and hear that one is there, that one is doing something and why one is doing it, and in this very narrow cabinet of wanting to feel one's existence, noises emanate. Mental and physical noises. But if awareness is there, awareness of this very process, as well as of the sounds that happen naturally, then they will remain natural. They will not have to confirm that I'm here, but because who am I that needs to hear myself? All of this can be questioned. And some words about listening to a talk. A talk is not an ordinary lecture that one is used to since school days, in which the requirement usually is to commit to memory what is being said, so that this memory becomes available to be repeated when it is demanded. Here, what is being talked about, or what the words refer to, are the processes of this human mind, which is not very different, fundamentally not different at all, in all human beings. And is it possible to listen to the words that are spoken and yet at the same time watch this mind which these words refer to? Because the mind in speaking is being observed. These words do not simply come from memory, but they refer to something that is being observed as the words come out. So we can all, since this human mind is common to all of us, observe at the same time as there's talking or listening, the two processes not being really different, in that they are directly related to the movements of the mind. So it is not at all a matter of, yeah, I agree with her, she's right, or no, I can't agree with that, that's too negative, that's too pessimistic, or this is too optimistic. It's a matter of looking whether it is so. No one needs to agree with what is being said. That is off the mark. What is important is to see within oneself, whether what is being said, yeah, this is so, or I've never looked, or how can I see that? Seems to be a wall of resistance there, or some kind of a barricade. I can't see it. Why not? Or, no, what is being observed isn't so. Those words that are being used by her do not quite hit the mark. And then one can bring it up in a meeting and we'll go over it again from the beginning. So that you and I look at the same thing together, not as you and me, but just looking. That there are two bodies sitting there is not important. Two different people. But that there's the same looking and the same seeing. That's of utmost importance for human relationship. Because at that moment it begins to flourish. In understanding and love and the absence of opposition, fight, argument. This is what the talk today will be about argument. And as a takeoff point, if that is a correct word, we'll use a koan. Several translations sort of have been fed into this brain here, so this is what comes out, not one, but a sort of a combination of several translations to make it utmost to the point. Don't remember now how the koan is usually called. The wind and the flag, I think. The wind and the flag. And the story goes something like this. The wind was flapping the flag, and several people were sitting in the vicinity of that flagpole, seeing and hearing the flag flapping. And an argument developed what it was that was moving, whether it was the wind that was moving or whether it was the flag that was moving. And no agreement could be reached among the people who were arguing. Then another person came by, listened for a while to the whole thing, and said, "It isn't the flag that's moving, it isn't the wind that's moving, it is the mind that's moving." And then it says that the people who heard this remark were struck with awe. There's also a poem that was made by the collector of these particular series of koans. His name is Mumon. He made a poem about this story, which again as a combination of translations, says, the wind moves, the flag moves, the mind moves, all equally are to blame, or all equally are at fault. As soon as the mouth is opened, all is wrong. Or, as soon as the mouth is opened, it is missed. When one hears a story like this, can one enter into it, being there oneself? We've all heard flags in the wind. It's not just the cloth that flaps and makes a loud noise, but sometimes the strings that are attached to the pole hit the metal. Flag hits the metal, and there's quite a noise, quite a racket. And some people, maybe they're having a lunch break or coffee break. Somebody's starting a question. What is it actually that's moving there? Is it the wind or is it the flag? One doesn't know why the first person brought up that question. Can one observe in oneself when one makes an observation such as this, why one brings it up? Sort of be open and transparent to the motive or the bundle of motives that may be there. It's so interesting to find out. If one says, well, there's no reason, I just brought it up, it just came out. Then there's the darkness, one will not look. Or one may already feel attacked. Why do you think I should have a motive? I don't know whether you have a motive or whether I have a motive or not, but let's look. It's interesting to find out, and it may open up so much and bring profound understanding about why one says things and why people respond to each other, why we respond to each other the way we do. It may already be in the motive for that opening remark. Is it that one feels sort of uncomfortable not saying anything? One may feel one is not in relationship with people unless one says something. So what one really says is, I'd like to talk with you, I'd like to be in touch. I feel uncomfortable sitting next to you, not saying anything, which in itself can be questioned. Why do I feel uncomfortable next to someone? We're both sitting there watching the flag. Why this feeling of one of us should say something? It's a habit. Usually we talk all the time. Maybe when we're little already, if we didn't say anything, mother or father said, "What's wrong with you? What happened in school? Why don't you tell us?" Or, "Why are you so quiet today?" Are you mad at me? Are you mad at somebody? We have all kind of ideas. It's happened to us before, so one feels uncomfortable. One can question this and try out to see whether one can sit with people, be in the closest of touch, which means one doesn't want anything of anybody, but one is there, listening, looking, being there, open, and yet have nothing particular to say. Anything that one would say would sort of be a deliberate attempt at being in relationship or in touch. I don't say it's always so. Watch it. Watch it how it is. And wonder whether it is possible to be at ease with each other without constantly talking. Actually, thinking back, that was the first deep impression of a sesshin attendant, that so many people could be together, closely in touch, without saying a word to each other. Actually, as it seemed, on a deeper level than words usually take one. And yet, we miss it most of the time, because even going for walks, the mouth keeps going. And one doesn't hear the wind in the branches and the birds calling, the footsteps, the snow crunching. So one reason maybe for opening up something, maybe just let somebody say something. Let's get something going here. Maybe it's boredom. What is boredom? One may come into this feeling that one quickly labels boredom during a retreat such as this. So it's very interesting and crucial to open it up. What is it that I have so quickly called boredom and then react to it? You label something, a word, with a word like boredom, and then you react to it. I don't like it. Something should happen. I wish I had an opening, or I wish I had this or that. And sometimes people say, I wish at least I had pain so something would be happening. What is it like when nothing happens? What is it really like? And the mind not immediately reaching for something, expecting something, or busying itself with labeling the state and reacting to it. As if one feels bored, if one feels nothing interesting is happening, it means the mind is already addicted to excitement, something, rather than nothing. But what is nothing? What is it when the mind is not totally occupied? Can one plumb that, be with it, without wanting it to be different? Just, no word for it, no reaction for or against it. Just one's total being that, which one will not name. So here in the story, someone sort of throws out an opener. Maybe to get into an argument. Maybe to start a clever argument. We do that so often. Make a clever observation or ask a clever question and be very pleased when something comes of it, when people enter in on it. And then it becomes very easily a match of cleverness, meeting cleverness. Which is a very superficial affair. And if this is the motive, to match wit with wit, of course there is no end to it. Because who is going to say, yes, you're wittier than I am? You win. It goes on. There's no end to it. Because one is already identified with one's wit, with that one remark, and one has to keep it going and try to win other people over. Makes one feel stronger. If other people say, yeah, he's right, the wind is moving, it's not the flag, and then the other person who takes the opposite side gathers allies. Yeah, it's a flag, and then who can let go if one is identified with one's argument, which we usually are? Let's take that under the microscope, this identification with an argument, with a position that one has taken. One may have not taken it originally very seriously, it didn't really matter much, but one has said it, so this is me out there being argued. Do you see that this is so? Watch it next time it happens, that when you say something and somebody counters it or puts it down, says it's stupid or something, you're hurt. Why? And you say, well, because the person said that I'm stupid. What is it that gets hurt? One is one's argument, and one has an image of oneself as being that. And that one starts defending. If there isn't some light shed on this whole process, because to the extent that one is hurt because one is called a name stupid or ignorant or not as clever as someone else, one has to prove to oneself that this is not so. One has to constantly mend and maintain and prove that one is right, because one is identified with an image of oneself. Do you see that? Does one see that? Maybe not in a heated argument, but it can dawn on one in the midst of that too. That the source of the hurt is the image that one has of oneself, which is being knocked or doubt thrown upon. And the only reaction we know is to attack the other person's image. And since it works alike for all human beings to fight, the battle is on. Images fighting images. Does this mean that every time one says something, one is defending something? One will defend it? Is this inevitably so? Is this incorrigibly or unavoidably so? Of course not. If the first statement, I think it's the wind that's moving, not the flag, or rather, let's find out what it is that is moving. Then one is open to input, to investigating the whole problem without being identified with it, as a matter of interest. Can we look at that? What is it actually that's moving? I've always thought this, or right now this thought comes up, but let's find out how it actually is. Maybe one realizes one can't find this out. One has a wrong question. One is dealing with a wrong problem or a wrong question. So when we come together and find ourselves in a discussion, are we really trying to find out something? Or are we trying to match conviction against conviction or wit against wit? Then we don't find out anything. Then we just, this thing goes on forever. One breaks it off at a certain time, goes away dissatisfied, only to come back together, to maybe try to convince the other person after all. Nothing has been seen, nothing has been resolved or understood about how this human mind works in identification, being one's statements, being one's convictions, and defending them, and hurting when they're attacked or ridiculed, feeling humiliated. We all know that. This feeling of humiliation when one's image is put down. One can suffer such incredibly deep hurt and immediately harbor feelings of revenge. Hurt, feelings of victimization, self-pity, and then the tension that this sets up throughout the organism. One's release, and the release usually is revenge. To do the other person in, hurt that other person's image, either directly or if one is afraid of that person, by talking with others about that person, trying to damage the person's image that way. But never leads any place. The hurt never heals because it's never revealed for what it is. And unless one really takes the energy to question it, to dive into it and to face this whole thing, it will keep on going. Always marring or jarring relationship, which one then may patch up, but the band-aids don't last. The wounds don't really heal, because what really nourishes them and creates them in the first place is not brought to light. This needing to be somebody, and using all the processes that this organism has developed over thousands and millions of years to defend the organism are now in the service of defending this creation, me, this mental creation, me, my image, or my host of images. Which can never be protected. They have to get hurt. One isn't forever surrounded by flatterers, which is just as dangerous as being surrounded by people who put one down. Because flattery is addictive. One has to have more of it. Because this image is not anything that is real. It's not as real as a tree or a flower that has grown organically. It's a construction of thought. And thought itself comes from memory. Memory comes from past experiences. And it's not real. You could say, wait a minute, when I see myself as this, and then that's very real. There's not the slightest doubt in my mind that this is an image. I am that. Yeah, this is so. But if there's an insight into this, one sees it as image. What is oneself? Just a bunch of images gathered over the course of one's lifetime? And this is not all where they come from, because the parents who have their images have already instilled images. Sometimes before the baby's born, they have this wish of what this baby would be. Boy or girl, a musician, an artist, or successful businessman or woman. Good. Hope I have a good baby. So often, hardly has the baby been born and the first visitor comes in and says, is she good for you? Meaning, does she sleep at night or does she cry a lot? These images are age-old. They're not new with us. They are our parents and their environment's images. And we pass them on. One only needs to have a child to see how quickly one has an image or imposes it upon the child. Not dealing with the actions of the child factually, but doing something extra, telling him or her what she is, a good boy or a bad girl, which becomes imprinted into the brain. And since the parents respond to one as being good or bad, or good in school or whatever, one believes, yeah, this is what I am. And with that sets in more and more and more limitation. And this tremendous vulnerability to be hurt. Somebody rattles the image or puts a pin into it. Next time one feels hurt, will one not just suffer from this hurt and fall into one's habitual tracks of thinking out a revenge or thinking out a justification or defense? But look at what is getting hurt. It's so easy, it's so simple. May not be easy, but it's simple. Turn the light, turn the looks, the questioning, the listening inward, and wonder what it is that's getting hurt. which is already an enormous step to take, because one doesn't take it for granted that one does get hurt. Yeah, that's human nature after all. We all get hurt. This way we don't investigate and we don't find out and we can't free ourselves. And this whole scene of getting together, is one ascertaining things from the outset? It is so, I know it. I've been near flags for years. I've got one in front of my house. My father, who knew a lot, he was a scientist, he always said, it's the wind that moves, of course, I'm just using that. And so the other argument, the other ascertainment has the same basis. I know it, it is so. Because one is identified with one's knowledge is oneself. Or does one turn this whole thing around and wonder what it is like? Then a gathering of people becomes a completely different thing. If everybody is in the spirit of inquiry, not relying on what one already knows, although if it is really factual, it can be useful input. Particularly if it's a question of a technological problem that one is investigating, then one needs a lot of knowledge and memory. We're talking about this psychological inquiry. Although in this case it didn't start out this way. One just wanted to know factually, is the wind moving or is the flag moving? But if one scratches at the surface, one finds out one isn't really interested in that at all. Because if one was, one would proceed differently. It wouldn't just be a matching of assertion against assertion. So, at what point will we scratch the surface in a meeting where we're at loggerheads with each other and look what's underneath all this arguing? And one may find out one isn't really interested in the facts of the situation at all. One isn't even interested in putting energy into that. If one sees that it was just trying to put oneself forth as a clever person, somebody who knows, and one sees that, one may drop out of the discussion after all. One is not interested in really finding out. This doesn't interest one. So then one can remain silent. Doesn't have to continue arguing. But if one is really interested, then to proceed not from me and my right opinions, but what are the facts of the situation? Let's find out. One may find out that one has to spend a lot of time, energy, to ascertain actual facts about what is so glibly argued from opinion and past experience. Here in this story, someone passes by, listens, not just to the surface argument, but to what's actually going on. namely the movements of the mind. In image, in defense, in attack, wanting to win, hating to lose, trying to get allies. Hurt and revenge. All of that are the movements of the mind. This person happens to see that what it actually is that's moving there when the wind flaps the flag isn't important to the people involved. It's seen because this person must understand what goes on in his mind too. If he didn't, he would just partake in the thing or pass on. Actually, if there was no resistance in one whatsoever, no one resisting, no one bracing against, defending against, no one there, then a wind, a strong wind blowing, would be no problem. One didn't think, I wish it was wind still. I wish it was warmer. I wish I had more clothes. Nothing. We've all found ourselves in a situation like this where there was tremendous wind and didn't have the right clothes on, or it was just blowing right through one, and one shivered. And if there's no resistance, one is not fighting it. Because one sees fighting it produces a problem, a conflict, and more tension. One sees that, it's clear. No, it's not that one has remembered it because somebody has said it, but it is here, it's revealed, so it is. And the resistance goes. It's just this tremendous, whatever you call it. Don't have to call it wind. It becomes a completely different thing from a moment ago when one was resisting it, fighting it, hating it, fearing it. When the mind doesn't move for or against, but calms down in the presence of what actually is, not what one thinks there is or remembers what this is. One doesn't know. And the mind, the brain has nothing to contribute to the situation. It can only contribute what it already knows. But when it's understood that what it knows is not what is right now, that's new. It's never been there. And to open up to that. Then there's no two. No opposition, no conflict. Therefore, a tremendous amount of energy. And joy. which is not produced by any thought. It's the joy of being alive without problems. We will end here for today.